The sharp crack of bone against cartilage echoed through the silent classroom. Elena Reeves, the 26-year-old history teacher, knelt on the cold linoleum floor, her right wrist twisted grotesquely behind her back, while Preston Whitmore, 6 foot 3 inches of 18-year-old arrogance, loomed above her with a triumphant grin. "I told you to get out of my classroom. This room belongs to my family." His voice thundered like inherited privilege made manifest. 23 students sat frozen in their seats, phones raised and recording, not one daring to intervene. Elena didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't even beg. Instead, she whispered something that made Preston's smile freeze on his face. "My lawyer is listening right now. Within 15 minutes. The entire world would know exactly who Preston Whitmore was. And a corruption empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars would begin its spectacular collapse." Before we dive deeper into this shocking story of power, corruption, and the brave teacher who brought down an educational cartel, I want to take a moment to thank you for being here. Stories like Elena's need to be heard, and your support makes it possible to expose these hidden truths. If this resonates with you or reminds you of injustices you've witnessed, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your comments below help build a community where truth matters more than privilege. Together, we can shine a light on corruption wherever it hides. The morning had started like any other at Westbridge Academy, Connecticut's most exclusive private school, where annual tuition ran $85,000 and legacy meant more than merit. Elena Reeves arrived at 7:30 a.m., an hour before most teachers, using the quiet time to prepare her lessons on American democracy, ironic given what was about to unfold. She'd been teaching at Westbridge for only 6 weeks, but that was long enough to understand the unspoken rules. The Whitmore name appeared on buildings, scholarships, and most importantly, on the founder's plaque in the main hall. Preston's grandfather had established the school in 1962, and 3 generations later, the family still treated it like their personal kingdom. Preston entered her classroom at 11:45 a.m. with his usual swagger, flanked by his loyal court, Jackson Hayes, whose father donated $3 million annually, carried himself with the casual violence of someone who'd had 2 assault charges mysteriously disappear from his record. Dominic Chen, nephew of the former principal and the group's tech genius, had his phone out, already documenting what they clearly expected to be another successful intimidation. The other students, recognizing the familiar pattern, began shifting uncomfortably in their seats. They'd seen this play before new teacher challenges the established order. New teacher gets broken. New teacher disappears. "Miss Reeves," Preston announced, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "You need to leave, now." He gestured grandly around the room, his Letterman jacket stretching across shoulders built by private trainers and performance-enhancing supplements the school conveniently ignored. "Today's October 15th, family tradition, every year on my birthday. This room becomes mine for a private celebration." Elena looked up from her desk, her expression calm despite the racing of her pulse. She noticed how the security camera in the corner had mysteriously turned away from the center of the room, how other students were already positioning their phones for optimal recording angles. Everything choreographed, everything planned. "I'm sorry, Preston, but class is in session. Your birthday party will have to wait until after school hours." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jackson Hayes stepped forward, cracking his knuckles with practiced menace. "I don't think you understand how things work here, Miss Reeves. When Preston says jump, you ask how high. When he says leave, you pack your things. He knocked her carefully organized papers off the desk, watching them scatter across the floor like fallen leaves. Elena's hand moved almost imperceptibly to adjust her hair clip, where a micro-recorder no bigger than a button battery blinked red. She glanced at her phone positioned face down on the desk, its screen dark, but the voice-activated recording app running silently in the background. Then she checked her laptop, where in the corner of the screen a small icon showed uploading to cloud, 42% complete. "I understand perfectly well," Elena replied, standing slowly. At 5'4". She had to tilt her head back to meet Preston's eyes, but something in her gaze made him hesitate for just a moment. "I understand that you believe your family's money and history give you the right to treat this institution as your personal playground. I understand that previous teachers have enabled this behavior, but I also understand the law, Mr. Whitmore, and the law doesn't recognize birthday traditions as grounds for disrupting education." Dominic Chen laughed, his fingers flying across his phone screen. "She's lecturing us about law. That's rich. Hey, Miss Reeves, did you know my uncle still has master keys to every room in this building? Did you know the security system has a funny glitch where footage sometimes just disappears?" He held up his phone, showing an app interface that controlled various school systems. "Did you know that with one tap, I can lock this door and disable the fire alarm? Technology is amazing, isn't it?" The door clicked shut with electronic finality. Several students gasped. One girl in the front row, Sarah Martinez, whose scholarship barely covered tuition, let alone the social cost of attending Westbridge, whispered urgently into her phone, "Mom, something bad is happening in history class. Preston and his friends are—" Jackson snatched the phone from her hand and tossed it into the trash can. "No outside communication during Preston's birthday celebration," he said with mock seriousness. Elena pulled out her phone with steady hands. Not an ordinary smartphone, but a specialized device encased in military-grade protection with advanced recording capabilities. This legal-grade recording equipment featured military encryption technology, automatic cloud backup to secured servers, and most importantly, the ability to maintain evidence integrity even if physically destroyed. Every second of audio was timestamped with GPS coordinates and authenticated through blockchain verification, transforming words and actions into undeniable legal evidence. "That's a nice phone," Preston observed, his tone shifting to something darker. "Expensive for a teacher's salary. Unless someone's paying you to be here, corporate spy, private investigator who sent you. Miss Reeves." He moved closer, his shadow falling across her desk like a threat made manifest. "I'm a teacher," Elena said simply. "Nothing more, nothing less. And right now, I'm teaching you about consequences." She pressed a button on the side of her phone, and a small red light began blinking. "This conversation is being recorded and live-streamed to a secure server. Everything you say, everything you do from this point forward is evidence." The room erupted. Students who'd been recording for entertainment suddenly realized they were witnessing something far more serious. Preston's face contorted with rage. No one had ever dared to document his behavior so blatantly. His father, Judge Whitmore, had always ensured that evidence had a way of disappearing, witnesses had a way of forgetting, and problems had a way of resolving themselves with generous donations. "You think you're smart," Preston snarled. "You think recording me matters. Do you have any idea how many lawyers my family employs? How many judges owe my father favors? How many politicians graduated from this school because we paid their way?" He grabbed Elena's wrist, the one holding the phone, and began to twist. The pain shot through her arm like lightning. But Elena didn't drop the device. Instead, she spoke clearly and calmly toward it. October 15th, 11:52 a.m. Preston Whitmore is now physically assaulting me, twisting my right wrist in front of 23 witnesses in room 307 of Westbridge Academy. The clinical detachment in her voice seemed to enrage Preston further. "Shut up." He twisted harder, and this time the crack was audible. Several students cried out. Sarah Martinez was openly weeping. Even Jackson Hayes looked uncomfortable, stepping back slightly. But Dominic kept filming, a strange smile on his face, as if he was enjoying the spectacle. Elena's face had gone pale, but her voice remained steady. Right wrist now showing signs of probable fracture. Medical attention will be required. This constitutes assault in the second degree under Connecticut state law, potentially elevated to first degree given the premeditated nature evidenced by the locked door and disabled security camera. I said, "Shut up." Preston yanked her forward, forcing her to her knees. The position put her at an even greater disadvantage, her twisted arm screaming in agony, but still, she held the phone. Still, she spoke with that eerie calm that was beginning to unnerve everyone in the room. "Preston," Jackson warned, Maybe we should what?" Preston whirled on his friend. "Back down. Let this nobody teacher think she can challenge us. My grandfather built this school. My father funds half the programs. I own this place. And everyone in it needs to remember that." He turned back to Elena, his grip tightening until she couldn't suppress a gasp of pain. "Drop the phone. Delete the recording. Apologize for disrespecting me. And maybe I'll let you resign quietly, instead of ensuring you never teach again." Elena lifted her head, meeting his eyes with an intensity that made him blink. "No." The single word hung in the air like a challenge. Preston's face flushed dark red. He raised his free hand. Whether to strike her or grab the phone was unclear. When Elena spoke again, "You should know, Preston, that my lawyer isn't just listening. He's en route with federal marshals. You see, this isn't really about your birthday party. This is about something much bigger." "You're bluffing," Dominic said, but his voice wavered uncertainty. His fingers moved across his phone screen, likely trying to search for information about Elena Reeves. "There's nothing about you online. You're nobody. A ghost." Elena smiled then, an expression that transformed her face despite the pain. "Exactly. I'm a ghost, and ghosts have a way of haunting the guilty." She shifted slightly, addressing the room at large. 6 months ago, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address, no identifying marks. Inside were documents detailing a massive grade-selling operation spanning 15 years and 89 schools. Financial records showing millions of dollars exchanged for altered transcripts, purchased SAT scores, and guaranteed Ivy League admissions. At the center of it all, 3 names kept appearing: Whitmore, Hayes, Chen. The room went absolutely silent, except for the sound of Elena's labored breathing. Preston's grip on her wrist had loosened slightly in shock. "You're lying," he whispered, but fear had crept into his voice. "Your father, Judge Whitmore, has been taking bribes to ensure certain students avoid criminal records. Mr. Hayes has been funneling money through his company to pay for grades and test scores, and former Principal Chen He was the architect of the whole system. Every rich family who wanted to guarantee their child's future just had to pay the price. $500,000 for Harvard, $700,000 for Yale, $1 million for Stanford with a sports scholarship thrown in." Elena's voice grew stronger despite her position. "But you already knew that." didn't you, Preston? After all, how else does someone with your academic record get recruited by Yale? Shut her up, Preston roared at his friends. Turn off the phones. Stop recording. But it was too late. The students were mesmerized. The ugly truth of their institution laid bare. Some were realizing their own achievements might be tainted. Others were understanding why their hard work had never been enough to compete. Jackson Hayes had gone pale. Preston, if she's telling the truth, if the feds are really coming, she's not telling the truth. But Preston's voice cracked. He released Elena's wrist suddenly, stepping back as if she were contaminated. My father is a judge. He'll destroy you. You have no idea what you're messing with. Elena slowly got to her feet, cradling her injured wrist. The laptop on her desk chimed softly. Upload complete. She smiled again, and this time it was the smile of a predator who had successfully cornered its prey. Your father is being arrested as we speak. Federal agents raided his courthouse office 20 minutes ago. The FBI has been building this case for 2 years, and I've been helping them for the last 6 months. Who are you? Dominic whispered, his phone dropping from nerveless fingers. Elena reached up with her good hand and pulled something from behind her ear, not just a hair clip, but a sophisticated recording device. My name isn't Elena Reeves. Until 2 years ago, I was Sarah Chen, investigative journalist. You might remember my byline from the Fitzgerald Senate scandal, the Pembroke Industries takedown. I've spent my career exposing corruption, and I'm very, very good at it. The sound of sirens began to filter through the windows. Multiple vehicles, growing closer. Preston looked around wildly, searching for an exit. But Dominic's earlier boast about controlling the locks had backfired. They were all trapped in the room together. This is entrapment, Preston shouted desperately. You came here under false pretenses. You lied about who you were. I came here as a teacher, Elena Sarah replied calmly. I taught history. I followed every rule, every protocol. I never once asked you to assault me, lock me in a room, or confess to your crimes. You did all of that on your own. Although I must thank you for the wrist injury assault charges, will make excellent leverage in getting you to testify against the others. The sirens were right outside now. Through the windows, students could see black SUVs pulling into the parking lot, agents in FBI windbreakers emerging with purposeful strides. In the hallway, the sound of running feet and authoritative voices grew louder. Please, Preston said, and for the first time in his life, the words sounded genuine. I didn't know I was just doing what my father taught me. This is all I've ever known. Sarah looked at him with something that might have been pity. And that's exactly why this system needs to be destroyed. So students like you never think assault and bribery are acceptable birthday traditions again. The door burst open with explosive force. Federal agents flooded the classroom, weapons drawn but quickly holstered upon seeing the scene: an injured teacher surrounded by panicked students and 3 young men who suddenly looked very much like the teenagers they were. Sarah Chen, the lead agent, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, approached carefully. Agent Martinez, are you injured? Fractured wrist? Possibly broken, Sarah replied, still maintaining that eerie calm. All documented. The primary suspects are Preston Whitmore, Jackson Hayes, and Dominic Chen. I recommend checking their phones before Mr. Chen attempts any remote wiping. Dominic lunged for his phone, but an agent was faster, securing the device in an evidence bag. Preston stood frozen, watching his world crumble in real time. Jackson had sunk into a chair, head in his hands. The other students remained silent, witnesses to history unfolding in their classroom. Agent Martinez studied Sarah with professional interest. The journalist who died in that car accident 2 years ago. Impressive cover. She turned to the three boys, Preston Whitmore, Jackson Hayes, Dominic Chen. You're under arrest for assault, conspiracy, and violation of federal education statutes. You have the right to remain silent. As the agents led them out in handcuffs, Preston turned back one last time. My father will. Your father was arrested 45 minutes ago. Agent Martinez interrupted. Along with 16 other judges, administrators, and business leaders, your testimony, should you choose to cooperate, might reduce your sentence from 20 years to 5. The classroom erupted as students realized the magnitude of what they'd witnessed. Sarah Martinez, the scholarship student, was crying with relief. Does this mean, are all our grades real? Did we actually earn our places here? Sarah Chen, cradling her injured wrist, addressed the room one last time as Eleanor Reeves. Every honest grade stands, every legitimate achievement remains valid. But the inflated scores, the purchased admissions, the fake extracurriculars, all of it will be exposed. Some of you might discover your competition was never fair. Others might learn that your failures weren't because you weren't good enough, but because the game was rigged against you from the start. In the principal's office an hour later, Sarah sat with her arm in a temporary cast, while Principal Morrison, who'd somehow avoided arrest by claiming ignorance, sweated through his expensive suit. Federal agents had commandeered the conference room, turning it into a mobile command center. Through the glass walls, she could see them processing evidence, conducting interviews, and coordinating with teams at other schools. You used us? Morrison said, his voice bitter. You came here under false pretenses. Sarah pulled out her laptop with her good hand, opening a program that made Morrison's eyes widen. The screen displayed a sophisticated crime analysis software interface, the kind only federal law enforcement agencies had access to. This professional-grade platform could connect data from thousands of sources, analyze crime patterns, and create complex criminal network diagrams within seconds. It had mapped out the entire grade cartel network, 247 individuals, 89 schools, and transactions totaling $450 million over 15 years. I came here as a teacher, Sarah corrected. I taught your students about American history, about democracy, about justice. The fact that I was also investigating the largest education fraud in U.S. history doesn't negate that. Look at this network map. Morrison, your school was just one node. The corruption spread from prep schools to universities, from testing centers to admissions offices. You want to know the real tragedy? Thousands of brilliant, deserving students were denied opportunities because wealthy families could simply purchase their children's futures. Morrison stared at the screen, watching as the software highlighted connections between bank accounts, shell companies, and educational institutions. How long have the feds known? The investigation started 3 years ago when a whistleblower at the College Board noticed statistical anomalies in SAT scores from certain zip codes. Always perfectly calibrated to meet Ivy League thresholds, always from the same network of schools, always paid for through the same Byzantine financial structures. Sarah clicked through several screens, showing transaction records. But they needed someone on the inside, someone who could document the day-to-day operations. Enter Eleanor Reeves. Idealistic young teacher with impeccable credentials and a conveniently untraceable past. And your wrist, Morrison gestured to her cast. That was planned too. Sarah's expression hardened. I knew Preston would escalate. His psychological profile suggested a 73% probability of physical violence when cornered. I didn't know it would be today. But I was prepared. The recording equipment, the live stream to federal servers, even the specific legal phrases I used while he was assaulting me, all designed to build an airtight case. You sacrificed your body for evidence. I sacrificed 2 years of my life, my identity, and yes, a few bones to expose a system that was destroying the very foundation of American meritocracy. Worth it. She closed the laptop. Your resignation letter is due by 5 p.m. If you cooperate fully with the investigation, you might avoid prosecution. By evening, the story had exploded across every major news network. Grade cartel exposed federal raids at elite schools nationwide. Sarah, her arm in a proper cast now, stood before a forest of microphones outside Westbridge Academy. Behind her, FBI agents continued carrying boxes of evidence from the administrative building. For 15 years, she began, her voice carrying across the crowd. A shadow system has operated within American education. Wealthy families could purchase not just admission to elite schools, but entire academic identities, GPAs inflated, test scores manipulated, extracurricular activities fabricated. Today, that system ends. A reporter shouted over the crowd, "What about the students who benefited? Will their degrees be revoked?" That's for the universities to decide. But every transaction has been documented, every fraudulent grade identified, every purchased score flagged. The truth, as they say, will out. "What's next for you?" another journalist called. Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Recovery, physical and otherwise. This investigation required me to become someone else, to live a lie for the greater truth. That takes a toll." Later that night, in her real apartment, not the teacher's studio, Elena Reeves had rented, Sarah Chen sat surrounded by boxes of evidence. Newspapers with her story splashed across front pages, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Columbia School of Journalism that had been presented in absentia when she was dead. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Impressive work, Ms. Chen, but you've only exposed one network. The Hydra has many heads." Attached was a single image, a charter school in Louisiana. Its logo eerily similar to symbols she'd seen in some of the grade cartel's older documents. Different state, different demographic, same corruption in a new form. Sarah stared at the image for a long moment. Her wrist throbbed, a constant reminder of the price of justice. She thought about Preston Whitmore, sitting in a federal holding cell, finally facing consequences. She thought about Judge Whitmore, whose lifetime of corruption had been exposed in a single afternoon. She thought about all the Sarah Martinezes who'd worked honestly only to be cheated by a rigged system. Then she thought about all the other Preston Whitmores still out there, in schools where no one was watching, where no federal investigation was underway, where money still spoke louder than merit. She picked up her phone and typed a response, "Send me everything you have." The next morning's headlines screamed about trials and reforms, but Sarah Chen was already researching Louisiana charter schools, building another identity. The grade cartel was dead, but new networks were forming. She studied the mysterious logo matching old cartel documents. Her wrist would heal in 6 weeks. The investigation would conclude in months. But educational justice required lifetime commitment. Sarah whispered her investigative epitaph. Educational corruption is like cancer, remove one tumor, and it metastasizes elsewhere. The only cure is constant vigilance.